1,000 kilometers, a landlocked nation, and a technique so simple it uses little more than soil, water, and hands. In the heart of Burkina Faso, where over 60% of the people live scattered across rural lands, roads are not just paths of gravel and dust. They are lifelines. Without them, farmers cannot reach markets, children cannot reach schools, and soldiers cannot reach the villages they are sworn to protect. Isolation is not a map, it is a sentence. Yet from this injustice rises an unlikely answer. Ibrahim Traoré, the young president, has set a vision that does not wait for bulldozers or foreign contractors. Instead, he turns to the people themselves, to a Japanese-born method known as Do Nou. Earth sealed in bags, beaten into form, laid side by side until they become a road. What seems like poverty's compromise becomes sovereignty's declaration. But the question remains, are these red soil roads just temporary tracks across the Sahel? Or could they be the first lines in the story of a new legacy, a vision 2050 for Burkina Faso and beyond? Stay with us. This is more than a headline. It is a turning point. Subscribe and walk with the story. Burkina Faso's challenge is carved into its soil. More than 60% of its population lives in rural areas, scattered across villages where the rhythm of life depends on rain, harvest, and access to the outside world. Yet the roads that should tie these communities together are often broken, muddy, or missing altogether. In such a landscape, distance is not measured in kilometers, but in hours lost, crops spoiled, and lives endangered. A farmer with sacks of maize can watch his season's labor rot simply because the market lies beyond a riverbed track, washed out by rain. A mother may find that the nearest hospital is only 10 kilometers away, but without a road, it might as well be 100. It is here that the Do Nou technique steps forward, with roots in Japan but now reborn in the Sahel. Its name is disarmingly simple: earth and bags. The process requires no towering machines, no fleets of trucks. Instead, workers collect laterite soil, the rich red earth abundant in Burkina Faso, place it into bags, and tamp it firmly. 20 strikes for each one, ensuring density and strength. Once hardened, these bag blocks are arranged side by side, stacked in rows, and covered with soil or gravel to form the surface of a road. Water, carefully measured, binds the soil within, producing firmness without the expense of cement or asphalt. The elegance of Do Nou lies in its accessibility. Where bulldozers cost fortunes and fuel drains national budgets, the Do Nou method requires only the most basic of tools: shovels, tampers, wheelbarrows, and above all, willing hands. What might seem primitive to the outside eye becomes in fact an act of engineering genius, a solution adapted to scarcity. Every bag compacted is a reminder that sovereignty does not always spring from abundance. Sometimes it is born from necessity. Beyond its technical aspects, Do Nou carries profound social meaning. When a road project begins, it does not belong to contractors who will arrive with cement mixers and depart with inflated bills. It belongs to the people themselves. Local youth, often unemployed and searching for purpose, can take part, earning wages while laying down the stones of their own future. Each meter of road is built by the sweat of those who will later walk it, cycle it, or drive their produce across it. In this way, the road is not just a connection between villages. It is a thread of dignity woven through the fabric of community life. The government's goal is formidable: 1,000 kilometers of rural roads. On paper, such a figure seems impossible for a state with limited finances and scarce mechanized equipment. Traditional construction methods would devour years and billions the country does not have. Yet in Traoré's vision, the Do Nou technique transforms this impossibility into a challenge that can be met. By decentralizing the responsibility, mobilizing communities, and combining small state support with human determination, the country moves closer to that 1,000-kilometer dream. And the benefits ripple outward. Roads connect more than points on a map, they connect destinies. With each stretch of soil bag path, farmers gain access to new markets, Merchants expand their trade, children reach their schools without walking for hours, and patients arrive at hospitals in time to be saved. Even security forces, often delayed in reaching vulnerable villages, find that roads become arteries of protection. Where once isolation bred despair, now pathways breed opportunity. The symbolism cannot be overlooked. These are not merely roads of dirt. They are declarations written across the land. Declarations that Burkina Faso will not wait for saviors, that it will build with its own calloused hands what others said required machines. Each kilometer laid is both infrastructure and manifesto. It whispers the truth that sovereignty is not imported, it is constructed, one bag of soil at a time. But what happens when this humble technique meets the soaring ambitions of a nation? Every nation has its moment of revelation, when a modest act becomes a symbol larger than itself. In Burkina Faso, that moment comes not with the roar of machines, but with the thud of tampers striking soil-filled bags. 20 strikes per bag, over and over, until rhythm turns into ritual, and ritual into revolution. What began as a mere construction technique is now recast as a testament of will. For the young men and women of the villages, this is more than a job. It is the chance to leave behind the stagnant dust of unemployment and grasp a tool that shapes their own destiny. To earn wages while building roads for their communities is to transform labor into dignity. Many describe the pride of seeing the road stretch through their village, knowing their hands helped carve it. Ownership replaces dependency. Instead of waiting for outside contractors, who so often arrive with promises and depart with unfinished work, communities build their own future, brick by brick, by bag. The emotional climax lies in the symbolism. Each bag of laterite earth compacted into form is no longer just soil. It becomes a brick of sovereignty, a token of resilience, a sign that poverty need not mean paralysis. The sight of red roads winding through the Sahel does more than connect villages. It binds the nation itself, like arteries carrying the lifeblood of independence. People see not merely infrastructure, but a collective declaration. We are not helpless, we are not waiting, we are building. The media within Burkina Faso highlights this energy. National coverage presents Do Nou not as a compromise, but as a proud innovation. Commentators speak of a movement of the people, by the people, for the people. In interviews, villagers stress how the technique has empowered them, giving work to the idle, pride to the disillusioned, and hope to the weary. Youth groups, student associations, and even local councils rally behind the initiative, framing it as a turning point not just for infrastructure, but for identity. Internationally, observers take note with cautious admiration. Development specialists point to Do Nou as an example of low-cost, high-impact innovation. Instead of dependency on foreign contractors and aid, Burkina Faso is cultivating a model of self-reliance that challenges the conventional playbook of African development. Western outlets remark on the irony. While rich nations often speak of appropriate technology, here is a case where the poorest communities are already mastering it. For many Africans beyond Burkina Faso, the story resonates. Proof that solutions can be born not from outside grants, but from inside grit. And yet, there is skepticism too. Some critics question the durability of Do Nou roads, warning that they may falter under heavy traffic or last only a few years. Proper maintenance. Engineers argue that without mechanized support, the dream of 1,000 kilometers could crumble under its own ambition. But such doubts do not diminish the growing pride of the people. Instead, they sharpen the contrast. Where others see fragility, Burkina Faso sees opportunity. The crescendo of this moment is clear. A simple Japanese-born method has evolved into a Burkinabe movement, carried on the shoulders of young workers, mothers, and elders. The roads themselves become stages where hope performs. And as the red tracks snake further into the countryside, they carve a message visible even from afar. We will not be defined by what we lack, but by what we create. If 1 kilometer can change a village, what can 1,000 kilometers do for a nation? Roads are not only lines of soil and gravel, they are lines of fate. In Burkina Faso, each kilometer built with Do Nou reverberates far beyond the sound of tampers and shovels. It touches the classroom where children arrive on time, the market where farmers sell without watching their crops rot, the clinic where patients no longer arrive too late. These roads shorten distances, but more importantly, they collapse barriers of time, of isolation, of despair. On the social front, the impact is immediate. Farmers, who once carried baskets of onions or sacks of maize on donkey carts across treacherous paths, now have reliable access to market towns. Post-harvest losses, once devastating, begin to shrink. Students can attend school regularly, their futures no longer at the mercy of muddy tracks. Women in labor reach hospitals with greater chance of survival. Entire communities discover that what seemed far away, education, healthcare, opportunity, is suddenly within reach. Economically, the roads breathe oxygen into suffocating local markets. Merchants from cities reach villages faster, stimulating trade. Prices stabilize as supply chains grow steadier. Transport costs fall, making goods more affordable. Over time, the ripple expands. Small roadside businesses spring up. Repair shops, food stalls, warehouses. Each new enterprise tied directly to the pulse of mobility. Development ceases to be an abstract promise and becomes tangible, measurable, visible in daily life. But perhaps the most profound effects are political. For decades, villagers have looked to the capital with skepticism, asking whether their government truly cared for their plight. Large contractors would arrive, funded by loans or aid, only to abandon half-built projects once the money ran out. Corruption and inefficiency bred cynicism. Now, with Do Nou, communities do not merely receive roads, they build them. In that act, trust begins to shift. Citizens see a government that invites participation rather than imposing solutions. The sense of alienation narrows. This is where the idea of Ibrahim Traoré Legacy takes root. Roads built by the hands of the people may last fewer years than asphalt highways, but they endure longer in memory. They embody a turning point where a leader chose dignity over dependency, trade over aid, self-reliance over waiting. If this vision continues, future generations may look back and call these 1,000 kilometers not just infrastructure, but the cornerstone of a new national identity. Politically, the decentralization of road building strengthens local governance. Village councils, youth groups, and social organizations gain real authority, managing small budgets and overseeing labor. This breaks the monopoly of large companies and disperses power closer to the people. It is not merely infrastructure, it is grassroots democracy in action. And with each completed road, the political fabric grows tighter, weaving citizen and state into mutual responsibility. Yet challenges remain. Do Nou roads cannot bear endless weight. Trucks loaded with containers will quickly undo what villages have labored to build. Maintenance is vital, and without consistent training and small-scale funding, roads could erode into the same dust they once conquered. The question lingers: can the government sustain this model beyond its initial enthusiasm? Can communities, proud of their achievement, remain vigilant stewards year after year? Still, the transformation is undeniable. What once was a story of absence, no roads, no jobs, no hope, has become a story of presence. Presence of opportunity, of labor, of self-belief. And in that presence, politics is reborn. Burkina Faso begins to define itself not by what outsiders bring, but by what its own people create. Do you think legacy is built in palaces or in the red soil roads laid by calloused hands? But roads are not only about trade and travel, they can also reshape the balance of power. No road is built in isolation, not even in a landlocked country. What Burkina Faso constructs within its borders inevitably sends ripples across the region, catching the eyes of neighbors, allies, and rivals alike. The African Union and ECOWAS observe closely, weighing whether Do Nou could become a template for other nations in the Sahel struggling with crumbling infrastructure and shrinking budgets. If the method proves resilient, it may spark a regional movement, proof that development need not be imported wholesale from the outside. Across the Atlantic, international partners take mixed positions. Development agencies in Europe highlight the ingenuity of low-cost, high-impact solutions, noting how the model aligns with calls for appropriate technology. Yet skeptics in Western capitals raise doubts. Will such roads endure the strain of climate change and growing populations? Can 1,000 kilometers of earth and bags compete with the promises of asphalt and concrete? Some fear that celebration of Do Nou may mask deeper structural issues. The United States, with its long-standing interest in Sahelian stability, views the roads through the lens of security. Rural infrastructure is not merely a civilian matter, it is also a military asset. Roads built by hand may not support heavy trucks, but they allow faster mobility for troops responding to insurgent threats. In a region where terrorism festers in remote, isolated villages, this newfound connectivity alters the strategic map. For Washington, a Burkina Faso with stronger internal cohesion is also a safer partner in counterterrorism. China, meanwhile, watches from a different vantage point. For years, it has dominated Africa's infrastructure projects with mega highways and railways financed by loans. The rise of Do Nou signals a shift, a model of development that requires neither billion-dollar contracts nor foreign machinery. Though modest, its symbolism is powerful. If more African states adopt similar methods, the continent may diversify its development pathways away from dependency on external giants. Here lies the essence of Ibrahim Traoré Vision 2050. By pioneering solutions that grow from the soil rather than from foreign coffers, Burkina Faso gestures toward a future where African sovereignty is not theoretical but practical. Vision 2050 is not only about long-term plans for prosperity, it is about demonstrating, today, that innovation can be humble and still transformative. The international stage may debate durability, efficiency, or scalability. Yet for ordinary Africans watching from Senegal to Niger, the lesson resounds. If Burkina Faso can mobilize its own youth, its own soil, its own sweat to reshape its destiny, why can't others? If one small landlocked nation can, what stops the rest of Africa? The road ahead is both promise and peril. Do Nou has shown that simplicity can be power, but like all solutions, it carries limits. These soil bag roads are not meant for container trucks or endless convoys. Their lifespan is shorter than asphalt highways, demanding periodic care. If left neglected, they will crumble back into dust. Yet herein lies the opportunity. By training communities to maintain what they have built, the roads can become not fragile experiments but living networks, renewed year after year. The risks are real. Over-reliance on Do Nou without parallel investment in higher-grade infrastructure could leave the nation vulnerable to bottlenecks. Critics warn that enthusiasm must be matched with pragmatism. Main arteries will still require concrete and steel. Climate change, with heavier rains and shifting soils, may also test the durability of earth-packed tracks. Without adaptation, yesterday's solution could become tomorrow's weakness. But the opportunities are greater still. With every road section laid, Burkina Faso demonstrates that sovereignty is not an abstract word. It is a practice. The model can expand. Villages working side by side with local governments, youth trained through technical schools, partial mechanization introduced for more critical routes. A hybrid system emerges. Communities build where they can. The state supports where it must. And the dream of 1,000 kilometers transforms into reality. Beyond infrastructure, the metaphor grows. These roads are not merely pathways across the Sahel. They are metaphors for a nation's future. They show that resilience does not demand grandeur, only resolve. They reveal that unity is not proclaimed in speeches, but proven in calloused hands striking tampers. They whisper that hope is not always imported with aid. Sometimes it is dug from the very soil underfoot. As Burkina Faso moves forward, the challenge will be balance. To embrace Do Nou without idolizing it. to expand opportunity without ignoring risk, to honor tradition while planning for modernity. If it succeeds, history may recall not only the 1,000 kilometers, but the spirit they represented, the courage to innovate, the will to endure, and the dignity to decide. But what will history remember? Roads of aid or roads of sovereignty? Every chapter of a nation's story is written not only in its cities and palaces, but in the dust of its villages and the sweat of its people. Burkina Faso, often portrayed as fragile and landlocked, now offers an alternative image, a people who turn soil into strength, who lay down bags of earth not as signs of poverty, but as bricks of pride. The Do Nou method is simple: soil, water, and hands. Yet in its simplicity lies a revolution. It has given work to the unemployed, voice to the forgotten, and roads to the isolated. It has shown that development need not arrive in the form of foreign contractors and colossal budgets. It can emerge from within, carried forward by youth who strike each bag 20 times, by mothers who prepare food for workers, by elders who guide the projects. This is not only engineering, it is nation-building. For President Ibrahim Traoré, the stakes are larger than infrastructure. The Ibrahim Traoré Legacy may well be written in these 1,000 kilometers of red soil roads, symbols of dignity and sovereignty that future generations will walk upon. This is not charity. This is not pity. It is independence, compacted into every bag and layered into every path. And if this vision endures, then Ibrahim Traoré Legacy will not be measured in titles or treaties, but in the very roads that bind a fractured land into a nation. Looking forward, the ambition stretches further. The dream is not only to connect villages, but to connect eras, to build a bridge from today's struggles to tomorrow's possibilities. This is the essence of Ibrahim Traoré Vision 2050, a future where Africa charts its own road, built not on dependency, but on determination. The question now passes to us, the witnesses of this unfolding story. Will we see these roads only as dirt and gravel, or will we recognize them as markers of a continent refusing to wait? If this story resonates with your sense of justice, do not let it end here. Subscribe, share, and keep walking with us along the road ahead.